Okay, welcome to my basement. We're here to talk about sentences. I've got one from Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath. I'll step out of the way so we can read it in its entirety. If you do a brain scan on a person with dyslexia, the images that are produced seem strange. So today I want to talk about a couple of things, and we've probably used these words before, but the words or the terms are clauses and phrases. They mean two different things. So basically a phrase is a chunk or a unit or a package of language that does not have both a verb and a subject. Okay, and then a clause is a chunk or unit or package of language that has both a subject and a verb. So let's start by trying to identify some phrases, okay? And you're probably familiar with prepositional phrases, so I've got my blue marker here. If you do a brain scan on a person with dyslexia, the images that are produced seem strange. Well, we've got one here, right? On a person and with dyslexia. And these are prepositional phrases, okay? So on is our preposition. Every preposition has an object. The object here is a noun, person, on a person, and then we have one piggybacking on top of that, with dyslexia. With is our preposition, and then dyslexia is our object. Those are our phrases here. They're prepositional phrases. So if we make a little note down here, phrase equals chunk without subject and verb. Okay. So we have two phrases here in this sentence. We have three clauses though. So we have three sets of subject and verb, if I'm getting that right, and I think I am. So if you do a brain scan, the images that are on a person with dyslexia, the images that are produced seem strange. Well, where's our first set of subject and verb? Well, we have you do a brain scan, right? So we have subject and verb. So here's one clause. We also have the images that are produced seem strange. And so here we've actually got two separate clauses stuck together, and they're not back to back. They're sort of chopped up. So actually, the images seem strange is one chunk, is one clause, and then that are produced is another clause, okay? So they're split up. So this piece goes together, and this is our independent clause, okay? And a clause has a subject and verb, so if you make a note, clause equals subject and verb. So if we eliminate all of the unnecessary information here, our basic subject and verb, our basic complete thought is the images seem strange. All this other stuff is giving us more information, more background on what's going on. This is what we call an independent clause or a main clause. So the subject of the main clause is images, and the verb of the main clause is seen. Okay? This is our independent or main clause. Now we've got a couple different clauses. These two types of clauses are called dependent clauses. If we take a look at this first one, if you do a brain scan, that has a subject and verb, right? You, subject, verb, do, has an object as well. Do what? A brain scan. But it does not express a complete thought, right? Because it's got this if in front of it. If you do a brain scan, well, you're waiting to find out what happens at the end of that sentence, right? It's not a complete thought. This word if is called a subordinate conjunction. We have coordinating conjunctions like and or but. Those connect two equal parts of sentences, two independent clauses. Subordinating conjunctions subordinate one clause to another. So to be subordinate, if you have a boss, you are his or her subordinate, which means you work underneath or work for that person. The subordinate clause or dependent clause works for the main clause, okay? It's not the boss. You can think of this as being the boss clause. It can stand on its own. Because of this word if you do a brain scan, cannot stand on its own. It does not express a complete thought. So that's one type of dependent clause. Then we've got this other type of dependent clause here, and that is that are produced, okay? This is what we call a relative clause. It's a type of dependent clause, and it's called a relative clause because this word right here, that, is called a relative pronoun. So we call this a relative clause or an adjective clause because what's it doing? It's actually, this whole clause here is telling us about images, okay? What type of images? Images that are produced. So we can think of this as an adjective clause or relative clause. And this whole piece right here is telling us about images. Okay, so it's one type of dependent clause, and this is an adjective clause describing the images. So here we have two prepositional phrases, on a person and with dyslexia, and those are complementing three total clauses, two dependent and one independent. If you do a brain scan dependent, that are produced dependent, the images seem strange independent. So we're talking about chunks of language here. We see them working in different ways, trying to talk about the differences between clauses and phrases.